Lila by Robert Pirsig in my ongoing investigation of the work and the theories and the philosophy of Robert Pirsig and how it can help us live a better life. I can already see that investigation of this book is open-ended, let's just say. One could spend a lifetime on it. It is so much there. It really is the basis, a description of the basis of reality. It's quite the philosophy. However, my objective is not to add to the annals of philosophy, which would be pointless for someone like me. There are so many people who are much smarter and better trained in that discipline. My purpose, again, is to figure out how to use this material to help us live a better life, a quality existence. I'm a clinician. I'm not a philosopher. So about a third of the way through the book is something that really stood out to me, and that's the concept of the Brujo. Phaedrus, the protagonist, has interactions with a professor called Dusenberry, who's a colleague who is dedicated to the understanding of and the welfare of the Plains Indians on the local reservations in Montana, where the university is, and who in fact takes Phaedrus to peyote ceremony. After this ceremony, Phaedrus develops an interest in American Indian mysticism. He senses what he experienced during that ceremony can help him expand the metaphysics of quality. So in his research on the American Indians, he comes across an anecdote that ultimately causes him to abandon the classic romantic quality dichotomy and embrace the static, dynamic conception of quality. The anecdote that he finds describes a moral conflict between Zuni priests and an outlier in the Zuni community. So the misfit, the outlier, is a bit of a troublemaker, and he's a drinker, and he's a peeping Tom. And on top of it, he's developed a relationship with the invading foreigners, the white man. When he's tortured by the tribal priests for his hijinks, he calls to his new friends, the invaders, the white man, and they rescue him, and they throw, because they've taken over power, they throw the priests in jail. When the priests come out of jail, they concede that the misfit is more powerful than they are now, and they relinquish control, and this misfit becomes a governor of the Zuni tribe. Phaedrus determines that this anecdote is an illustration of good and evil. The Zuni troublemaker, considered bad, considered a rule breaker, bad enough to be discouraged in his ways by the priests through torture, becomes good because the priests recognize that this troublemaker is the only tribe member who understands the necessity of working with, not against, the invaders. And of course, that in order for them to stay alive, they've got to do that. Therefore, the Zuni, previously bad, becomes good, and the priests, previously good, become bad. So I'm gonna read a short passage about that. Phaedrus concluded that a huge battle had taken place for the entire mind and soul of the Zuni. The priests had proclaimed themselves good and the Brujo evil. The Brujo had proclaimed himself good and the priests evil. A showdown had occurred and the Brujo had won. So the Brujo obviously is that misfit, and Phaedrus characterizes a Brujo as like a sorcerer, but really what it means is someone who steps outside the religious hierarchy and proclaims himself to be a religious leader from outside that hierarchy and comes back into the tribe with that new power. So there's another line. The Brujo had shown that he could deal successfully with the one tribe that could easily wipe them out at any time they wanted to. He had real political clout. So I would say, first of all, one thing that's obvious is this is the hero's journey. You know, a group is in crisis. The hero ventures into the netherworld and brings back the thing that can save them. and he's rewarded with power. So there's that. So Nietzsche was a man who saw deep into the collective psyche and made predictions, or maybe even more accurately, cast omens about the outcome for mankind in the wake of the death of God. And he ended up being correct, because he determined that without a transcendence, a collective transcendence, we would have to invent one, and those inventions would be really third rate, and in fact, they would be completely destructive. They would be based on the shadow of God on the wall, and the incompleteness would yield total destruction, and it did. You had communists, all the communism, and you had fascism, and that's exactly what happened. So Nietzsche was a Brujo. He stepped outside of the order and made predictions about the fate of mankind. Probably one of the strongest we've ever had. But there are Brujos all the time. So who are the Brujos of today? Who are the people whose bold and outrageous ideas seem disconcerting, but maybe matter? I've mentioned Ray Kurzweil. I would say he's one of them. Maybe Elon Musk. Maybe you won't agree with me, but Scott Adams, I think he's one. The biologist Robert Sapolsky, who is recharacterizing all of human biology as an underlying way of understanding behavior. His book Behave is fantastic. So the Brujo today is a person who helps the paradigm to shift. And let me give an example of something that's pretty huge these days. So journalism is something we talk about a lot. So as a journalistic entity, why is Joe Rogan thriving and mainstream media isn't? Because mainstream media as a journalistic body has, in a large part, and there are certainly some exceptions, become stagnant. It's resting on its laurels. It's using the methods of the past. The fact that we believe mainstream media, at least we have up to now, to be credible, but it's not producing anything new or useful. It's using its reputation to enrich itself through entertaining us rather than informing us. So it's kind of maintaining the status quo that has become stagnant. So it's a priest. Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan show has anyone and everyone on who has something to say of interest. And these people, like the Zuni hero, can be troublemakers. They can be paradigm shifters. Often these Brujos infuse new ideas into old ways of seeing. Quality is when the status quo is challenged when it should be. It is up to the Brujos of this world to shake up stagnation with dynamism, necessary to transform old ways into something new and productive. But because the culture was in transition, the Zuni culture, many people saw this Brujo's ways to be of higher quality than those of the old priests and tried to become more like him. In this dynamic sense, the Brujo was good because he saw the new source of good and evil before other members of his tribe did. That sounds like Nietzsche. So I'd like to say, keep your mind open to the Brujos, because they know where we're going. And now it's hard to determine who they are. So it's really, I don't yet have any kind of advice other than, the open-mindedness, meditative consciousness that we were talking about before. To determine that, to follow your gut. What seems true, what doesn't? Where are you biased and prejudiced? Where is your mind open? You want a free-flowing ability to take in dynamic quality, but you also want the things that are working to keep working. This, static quality is quality as well. This is a back and forth. So we want to align with these Brujos so that our ideas and understanding of the world does not become stagnant. From dynamic quality will come a static pattern that works for a while, becomes stagnant, and then needs to be updated. So it's a back and forth. So finally, let me read one last passage that pertains to us. When Phaedrus first read this passage, you know the anecdote, he felt a kind of eerie feeling, a feeling that he might have had if he had passed in front of a strange mirror and suddenly seen a reflection of someone he didn't expect to see. It was the same feeling he got at the peyote meeting. The Zuni Indian was not exactly someone else. This is not just an isolated tribal incident going on here. This was something of universal importance happening. This was every man. There is not a person alive who is not in some way or another in this kind of situation this witch was in. It was just that his circumstances were so exotic and so extreme, one could now see it by itself out in the open. We all have the Brujo within us. We have all the archetypes in us, and this is a major archetype. We see this Brujo pattern described again and again. So to live a quality existence is to be receptive and sensitive to this ongoing and eternal interplay of forces. So I hope that made sense, and I'll see you next time.
He's a magic man.